in. Good evening, and thank you for joining us again for another episode of News for You. My name is Julian Baudouin. I'm here with my co-host, Tunisia Islam. Welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
It's certainly good to have you back. We did miss you for sure, particularly your expertise in immigration, so thank you. All right, so today this broadcast is being brought to you by the South Dakota Dream Coalition. We are a group of immigrant-led and immigrant-facing organizations, and really, the overall goal of this broadcast is to make sure we're bringing you accurate and timely information as it pertains to knowing your rights in immigration. Today, we are live streaming from the Hub Studios, and on our social media pages, we will be live streaming from the Hub, also the South Dakota Dream Coalition, South Dakota Voices for Peace, and we are finally live on the News for You platform. Yeah, that took a while. But thank you guys for your patience as we continue to develop this programming. We appreciate your continued support and dedication to what we are doing. And so please follow us on all of those platforms, on Facebook, and then also on YouTube as we continue our growth. So today we are going to talk about the termination of the CBP-One humanitarian parole program. So is there anything you want to say prior to us kind of hopping into the questions?
Well, we just got notification that a judge has halted one of the program's expiration dates. So I'll mention that when we get there.
Okay. All right. That's kind of a breaking news. If we had time right before the episode, we would have done like a breaking news thing for you. But okay. All right. Cool. So we did take a week off. We do have a ton to cover. It'll be a little bit of a longer episode, but there's a lot of chaos going on right now. We see a lot of changes, of course, but we really don't have any direction. So there's a lot of programs where people who were legally here and illegally working, they were impacted this week. Should we start with some maybe programs that have been terminated?
Yeah, so actually there's a lot to cover, and hopefully we can get this all in. But we'll be talking about humanitarian parole that was ended, also TPS that is ending for some people, and then student visa revocations, as well as some ongoing developments with South Sudanese visas. So here we go. There's a lot of information. So I will be looking down more than I usually do because I want to make sure I'm getting it 100% accurate here. First and foremost, this week we received devastating news that people who have come in through the CBP-One app and humanitarian parole program called CHNV, which stands for Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans, have been terminated, but then we have a caveat there too. So before I dive in, it's really important for people who believe they're impacted by these policy changes that they know exactly what program they came through, because each program has a different expiration date, and that's what makes it so confusing. So let's start with Cuban, Haitian, Nicaraguan, and Venezuelan humanitarian parole, which is its own program. On March 25th, the Homeland Security announced that it was taking this humanitarian parole away for hundreds of thousands of immigrants living in the US legally. And I want to emphasize that both of these programs that have been terminated or halted are legal ways that people came into the United States and were living and working lawfully in the United States. So earlier this month in April, these parolees were receiving letters notifying them that their permission to stay in the United States and work legally was rescinded prematurely before the end of the 2-year period. So if you came in this program, you were allowed to lawfully be present and work in the United States for 2 years. So as of April 24, all remaining grants of parole under this program will become valid. But breaking news, we just found out that a judge has halted this date. So that means that if you came under the CHNV program, we don't know for sure what's going to happen. The judge can either decide to continue it or to end it altogether. So please stay tuned in to News for You and all of the Dream Coalition Facebook pages, specifically Voices for Peace. We will update information as soon as we have it. So if yesterday you thought you had to leave by April 24th, today know that that has been halted. That date is not set in stone. And technically, if you came under that program, you would have had to have left on April 24th and your work authorization was canceled on April 24th. So that means you will be able to lawfully work past that date. And as soon as we hear what happens in the legal case, we'll let you know what that means. So if you came under this program, you are now lawfully present in the United States. A parolee is not a status. It's not an immigration status. This is where it gets kind of tricky. However, it just means you were lawfully able to be here, lawfully work, and you could also apply for something else that could actually give you immigration status, such as an asylee, or if you were eligible to get a green card, which is called adjustment of status, you could have filed for those applications. So that is a little bit of a caveat that I'll get into in a second. The exception to all of this, however, is if you came as a Venezuelan under CHNV humanitarian parole, and you applied for TPS, which is temporary protective status, that officially will end on the designation date of April 7th. But there is another court case right now that's looking into that specific date. So again, if you were under TPS and you were here as a Venezuelan under CHNV, it doesn't mean that TPS is ending for sure anymore. So again, stay tuned because there's a lot of things changing and it's literally happening minute by minute. So some of this information here is actually not relevant anymore because of the breaking news we just found out. But the other big program that has been terminated effective immediately, and I'm not sure about the litigation of this case, but on April 8th, which was this past Tuesday, it's Thursday, right? So 2 days ago, if you came to the United States through CBP-One, and that was the only way you came in was through CBP-One, you were eligible to apply for our lawful work permit, and your category on your work permit will say C11. And I'm gonna turn to our behind the scenes guy. Thanks, Daniel. We have an example of a work permit. This is not anyone I know. This is from Google, but it is a work permit. So see the place where it says category on this work permit, it says C09. That means you have an application for a green card that's pending. But if you came through CBP-One, your category will say C11. And this parole program, the C11 attached to CBP-One, has ended immediately effective April 8th. So that means on April 7th, folks under this program were lawfully present and were lawfully able to work. And then on April 8th, over 900,000 people became unlawfully present and are now are not lawfully able to work. Okay. So if you came through the CBP-One app, if you don't leave immediately, everyone received a notice either through the app or through an email, because the app collected all your biographical information that you had to register to be able to come in lawfully. So it basically said that if you don't leave immediately, you could be committing a crime. You could then get arrested for this crime, be convicted, and then deported. Now, I just heard that there are some rumors in the community that because this program ended, this means that ICE is just coming in and sweeping in everybody. That is not possible. There's no way to know exactly where everyone is and do a big sweep. We obviously don't all live in the same areas. So please, again, tune into News for You, tune into reputable sources, not just anyone who's posting kind of fear-mongering things. Again, we don't know what their intentions are, but the impact is that it's causing more fear. And so as far as we know, this is the general rule of what happened on Tuesday. Okay, so if you came through CBP-One and your work permit currently says your category is C11, you have to leave immediately, or you could be convicted of a crime and then deported, which is a process, okay? But so as in law, there's the general rule and then there's all the exceptions. But I think there are two exceptions that are really important for folks to understand. Exception 1 is that if you came under any one of these humanitarian parole programs, and then you applied for something else, like a green card or asylum, if there has been no decision on the application you filed, right? Usually it takes at least a year, and that would be really fast to get a decision back after you submit an application. Lawyers are still kind of doing this analysis, but most are saying that if you have applied for something else and haven't received a decision yet, that you are able to stay in the United States until that decision is made. So it would be very important that if you came under this parole program and you had the receipt notice when you apply for something, USCIS sends something back called a receipt notice, and it says, we received your application, this is the application, this is the date, right? You need to make a copy of that and keep that with you. Because if ICE does come and say, hey, we know you're a humanitarian parolee, this has ended, so we're detaining you, you can pull out this proof that you have a pending application. So let's see. So if you've applied for something else and your work permit says C11, this is the exception. Now you should be able to stay here until there's a decision made. If you came under CHNV, Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, Venezuelans, again, there is a court proceeding that just took place where the judge has halted, meaning that that is not the date as of today that people need to leave by. So if you have a work permit in the category, usually most people coming in under humanitarian parole are going to be applying for asylum or adjustment of status, which is a green card. So if you have a work permit and it has a C08, that means you have a pending asylum and you are allowed to stay in the US lawfully until a decision on your case, Okay, same thing for C09, which was in the example that we had on the screen earlier. That means you're waiting to see when you'll get if and when you'll get your green card. And you can stay here lawfully. Of course, when things change, we will let you know as soon as we can through News for You, our websites, our social media. Okay, so that was exception 1. Okay. Are you confused yet?
Just a little.
Welcome to immigration law. Okay, so exception 2 is a really big exception. It only applies to Cubans. In 1966, the Cuban Adjustment Act was signed into law. This means if you are a Cuban native or a Cuban citizen, you can apply for adjustment or your green card. You have to be in the United States and physically present here at least 1 year, and you have to have a lawful entry. So if you're a Cuban who came through CBP-One, or you came through the other program, CHNV, for example, then you have to be here for 1 year and 1 day before you can apply for your green card. It's best to reach out to a lawyer or a BIA accredited representative to see if you're eligible for Cuban adjustment. The issue here is timing. So this is an answer we don't have yet, and we will get it to you as soon as we can. But let's say I'm a Cuban citizen and I came to the United States under CBP-One or CHNV parole program on January 1st of 2025, so just a couple months ago. I have to be in the United States until January 1st, 2026. I have to physically be here and never have left the United States. And then I can apply for my green card on January 2nd, 2026, because I've been physically present, I lawfully entered for 1 year. But if your program expires, such as CBP-One expired on April 8th, can I stay unlawfully? Because remember, when that was terminated on April 8th, you automatically became unlawfully present. But can I stay here and still qualify for a green card through Cuban adjustment? The answer right now is maybe. We don't have a clear answer for this. I might qualify for a waiver, which basically means I'm asking for forgiveness for being unlawfully present in the US. But that is the risk that you have to assess. Are you willing to take the risk to stay here unlawfully for maybe another 8 months so you can maybe apply for adjustment? And again, as soon as we have some more information on that, we will let everybody know. So that's humanitarian parole that impacts a large population in South Dakota. And that's what we know as of right now.
And so again, nationally, what do you think the overall population impact is touching? I mean, are we talking
Millions.
Millions?
At least, yeah. I mean, so CBP-One, the estimate is about 970,000 people came legally into the country. And that is the program that did end on April 8th. And then CHNV, probably has at least 1 million more. So those are the two main categories of people who entered lawfully, did everything right, was working lawfully, and now their programs have been terminated. But my faith is in all the good lawyers and organizations that are fighting for our communities, and fighting for judges and fighting for sticking to our constitutional rights and like the administrative process and all the things that go into making these rules and breaking these rules. So again, we will let you know as soon as we know about litigation and outcomes for these two specific things.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. That's a lot of information. The one thing that I just want to reiterate, and we've talked about it in other episodes as well, is that you can go back to watch these episodes. So please go back, watch this episode. I know I have to do it 2 or 3 times just to be able to grasp, or really to grasp a little bit of the capacity of what you talked about. But, although it's confusing, we do have people available, we do have organizations available that you can reach out to. Can you talk a little bit more about those organizations and maybe the people that are involved that can help you figure out what your status is?
Yeah, I mean, I think another layer of the desperation of this situation is the severe lack of legal services and the severe lack of immigration lawyers across the country, but specifically here in South Dakota. And when there's a severe lack of resources, this is where exploitation of our community becomes rampant. And people are so desperately want to stay here legally. I haven't met one person in 20 years of practicing that has said, yeah, I want to be here illegally, right? They're desperate to be legal and do it the legal way. And when someone comes up to me who looks like me, who speaks my language and says, you know what, there's this new program and I can get you a green card in 3 months, I promise, just give me $15,000 and I'll make it happen. It's amazing to me how many people hand over the $15,000 and then they don't see anything. So if you are ever promised by anybody that they can get you a work permit or a green card, that is a lie. And do not trust that person and do not give them your money. Always look for a lawyer, and a way that you ask if someone is a licensed attorney is you ask for their bar admissions card. And I should have brought that as show and tell, but we all have a card and it has a number on it, and any attorney should be able to show you that right away. And then BI accredited reps have something similar, a certificate that will say that they are qualified to help with immigration paperwork. And with the severe lack of people, we again are part of our regional network. So we've reached out to lawyers in Minnesota, North Dakota, and South Dakota. And folks who said that they're taking cases right now are listed on the South Dakota Voices for Peace website. And just go to sdvfpeace.org and click legal resources, and you'll see a list of names that hopefully you can call and get some answers for.
Yeah. Well, again, that was a ton of information. I know we're running short on time. We do have kind of something special for folks today. Before we get into that, though, can you talk a little bit about maybe student visas quickly?
Yeah, unfortunately, I was presenting at the CPCM conference last week, and there was some folks there from Mankato that asked me, hey, can international students' visas just be revoked for no reason? And I wasn't sure what they were talking about, but sure enough, there have been over 340 student visas that have been revoked, which means taken away. So a student visa allows someone to lawfully be here, to lawfully go to school. You need permission to be here, right? And so the Department of State is actually in charge of international student visas, and they're just revoking them. And they're not letting universities know, and they're not letting students know. And we've had some incidences close to home now, just in Mankato, at Mankato State, where ICE did come onto campus and then detained those people because they were out of status, but they didn't even know themselves. So right now, there again are several individual lawsuits that are happening across the country because of different reasons that these students' revocations are happening, if they even know. But there is organizing happening to create some class action lawsuits, and we'll let you guys know right away about that. But right now, the advice really is if you are here on a student international visa, please start checking your visa status regularly. Check in with your international programs office and ask them how often they're checking everyone's student status and how they will notify students if their visa has been revoked. Ask them also, what will the school do to protect them if ICE does come to campus and your status has been revoked, and see what they say. Create a plan on what to do if you are detained. You know, do you know a lawyer in your area? Do you know of an organization that's taking on these cases? And again, we'll start listing specific lawyers for student visa work as soon as we get more information on that. So please, like we've been saying, tune into News for You, follow our social media, and follow our website information for that, for those updates.
Well, awesome. Again, a ton of information, even when you break it down to the student visa part of things. We're so lucky to have an immigration attorney with us to understand that. I certainly could not have explained any of that. So we told you we kind of have a surprise today. This is our first time doing this, so bear with us as we cross our fingers and hope not to have any technical difficulties. It went smooth when we practiced. But we do have a special guest that will be joining us, Dr. Goy Yo, and we'll see if we can get him in quick.
Hello. Can you hear me?
All right, Dr. Goy, if you can hear us, can you just give us a wave?
Yes. I can hear you well. Thank you. Can you hear me?
There might be us. There we go.
Oh, great.
All right, so I think there's just a lag in there. Dr. Goy, thank you for joining us. I'm gonna kind of switch over the questioning part to Nisa, just to kind of talk a little bit more about how this is impacting our community here in Sioux Falls, but then also kind of broadening it out to the South Sudanese community.
Yes, thanks for joining us, Dr. Goy. What we know right now, right, is that the administration came out and said all South Sudanese visas were revoked. And then we've seen in the news today that there's some political maneuvering happening between the US and South Sudan. And that South Sudan, actually, this happened because South Sudan was not accepting someone who was being deported from the US because they were actually not from South Sudan. So they were saying, we're not going to take this person in. And then we got the news about revoking all the visas. And now South Sudan has taken that person. So can you tell us more about how this is impacting the community?
Thank you very much, Denise, Julian. I think we are lucky to have you here for our community to navigate all these immigration issues. First of all, you guys have been following the news. It was just something that South Sudanese did not expect to come down that fast. South Sudanese came here in the 90s. Most of them were refugees. And recently we had few people coming through TPS, temporary protected status. And when that decision was made, a lot of people panicked. And I had one girl in Omaha calling and saying, she just met her mother. Her mother was somewhere, she couldn't find her for about 20 years. 5 years ago, she found her mother, and then she was working on her passport so that her mother joins her. After 28 years, and when that thing happened, she just lost her mind. She wasn't very pleased, and I read in her post, she said she felt.
Well, thank you. As we know, things are just really uncertain, but this is an issue that impacts a lot of people in South Dakota. So we're committed to keeping our eye on it and updating the community with information. We are reaching out to South Sudanese community leaders to get just more open communication on what information the community needs also. So thank you, Dr. Goy, for
thank you.
being with us today.
Yes, thank you. And again, thank you all for joining us. That went a little bit smoother than I imagined it to go. And we appreciate you for sticking with us. This episode was a little bit longer than normal. But again, we did not have an episode last week. And so there was a lot to cover, particularly also with the news that we had today. So this is a really, really stressful time for us. And News for You, we can't take away any of the fears, really, to be honest with you, but we can certainly help you with accurate and timely information to hopefully mitigate some of the concerns that you and your family may be experiencing right now. So again, this information is provided by the South Dakota Dream Coalition, And so these are really trusted individuals in our community who work in immigration. It's either immigrant-led or immigrant-facing organizations. And so also some community leaders that are also involved. So our goal is to make sure that you're less anxious about, leaving your house or taking your children to school and attending school activities, things that are necessities for us to live day to day. So again, thank you for tuning in to News for You. We do need your help, of course, spreading this to as many communities as possible. As you can tell, this is now starting to trickle down into multiple communities. So remember to keep sending Cape Sioux Falls and South Dakota Voices for Peace any questions that you may have, and we'll make sure we get those answered during the broadcast every week. So we host this in English and also in Spanish, Thursdays at 6 p.m. for English, and then 6:30 for Spanish, all times is Central Times. And I also want to put another plug in, actually a couple more plugs in. We can't do this without your support, not just on social media, but we also need your donations to continue this effort. So on social media, you can find us at News for You, the South Dakota Dream Coalition, South Dakota Voices for Peace, and the Hub South Dakota. We are airing this on Facebook and also on YouTube, and we will continue to do this as long as we possibly can. So please, please, please continue support, continue to spread the word, and we appreciate you. We will see you next week.
Yes, and you can send donations through South Dakota Voices for Peace. We are a registered 501c3, and you can find our EIN number on our website. When you hit the donate button, you can just write in, this is for News for You, and we will make sure that is allocated for this programming. So thank you.
See you guys.
Bye.